Roster cutdown day is finally here. The New Orleans Saints need to get to 53 players by 3 p.m. Central Time today. And in this video, we're going to go through the latest moves that have happened Tuesday morning. We've already broken down the roster moves that happened on Monday, yesterday on the channel. So go check it out if you haven't seen it. But for today, we're going to start off the show by telling you who has been released on Tuesday, August 26th. My name is Trizzy Trace Girouard. Like today's video and be sure to tune in because we're going to break down every single one of these roster moves. So far, the notable players that have been released: Jake Haener, the quarterback. Saints traded up to go and get him. He is no longer on the roster. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Trayton Welch, a couple players that have also been released. Isaiah Foskey, Rico Payton, and DeMarco Jackson also round out some notable defensive players. But you also have Shane Lemieux and Easton Kilty on the offensive line, who have been waived as well. Now, in terms of players who've been placed on IR, there's been a couple of these guys as well. We're not necessarily sure what the injury was for Barry Wesley, so that's why there's a TBD. If there's any updates, I'll be sure to put it in the comment section. But Landon Young, he was carted off with an ankle injury in preseason week 3 against the Jaguars. John Ridgeway, he has been placed on IR as well with a pec injury. Worth noting, John Ridgeway, he actually has a designation to return. So if you're placed on IR now, you only have to miss the first 4 weeks. Mike Garafolo putting this out to kind of add some clarity. The Saints, they did trade for John Ridgeway. He was an electric player. Remember, he did that post-practice press conference, shirtless, tattoos everywhere. I mean, the dude is a tank. He's going to miss some time with the pectoral injury, but he should be back early in the season. Reminder, he's only going to have to miss the first 4 weeks. I believe Barry Wesley also has a designation to return from injury, so that means Landon Young will not be returning from injury because you can only designate 2 players every single year. Now, we're going to start off with the offensive side of the football, and I'm going to go through each player, kind of give you my thoughts, maybe their future, whether or not they could be brought back on the practice squad. And then we're going to do the same thing on the defensive side of the football. We got a lot of players to discuss, so I hope you guys are ready to have some honest conversations. Really quickly, though, the sub battle in August is almost done. And ladies and gentlemen, we're getting embarrassed by Falcon State. We're down by 20 subs. That's ridiculous. This team is a poverty franchise. Help me bury the baby brothers of the NFC South. Help me bury our baby brothers at Chat Sports. And subscribe today if you hate the Dirty Birds. Most notable cut to start off, we're going to talk Jake Haener, the quarterback the Saints traded up to go and get a couple of years ago in the 4th round of the NFL draft. Saints are now free entirely of the Fresno State quarterback world, if you will. They no longer are a pipeline for Fresno State quarterbacks to go to New Orleans and be disappointing. Look, I want to say one thing about Jake Haener. I do think that he's a player who could potentially return to the practice squad. Kellen Moore has praised this guy a lot. He is a very smart football player in terms of having a high football IQ, being a good clipboard holder, being a good backup QB, but I don't think that he really has any business starting in the National Football League. I think his best chance to start professional football or semi-professional football would be just heading to the UFL, if you ask me. No disrespect to Haener. He was a guy who came in as a Saints fan after being drafted, had a Reggie Bush jersey as a kid. Really don't want to slander him or his name or anything he did. Just wasn't good enough for the black and gold. But according to Mike Garafolo, there is a quarterback you should be keeping your eyes on, Easton Stick. He was recently waived by the Atlanta Falcons. He did draw interest from New Orleans, and Kellen Moore does have a history with this quarterback. So be on the lookout for Easton Stick to potentially join the New Orleans Saints in the near future. I'll also recommend to keep your eyes on Hunter Deckers because I think that he's a player who also could be potentially brought back to the practice squad. Saints right now have 2 quarterbacks on their roster in Tyler Shuck and Spencer Rattler, but I think Hunter Deckers is a player that Kellen Moore liked. He was brought in after a successful minicamp tryout, stuck around for a little bit, was the QB4 in that QB battle, if you will, never really got first rep considerations, if you ask me, but I do think that he's a player who could potentially return to the practice squad, so we'll have to see. Kevin Austin Jr., wide receiver, he also has been released. I think that the wide receiver room in New Orleans is a very interesting unit. Kevin Austin Jr. last season was fairly effective whenever his name was called after the team was decimated by injuries, but in the preseason, he just wasn't consistent enough, wasn't reliable enough for me, and I think that the wide receiver room in New Orleans could shake out pretty similar to how you see it right now. I think you're only going to keep 6 of these players. I think Dante Pettis could be a player that's at risk of being cut. Chris Olave, Mason Tipton, Brandon Cooks, Devon Vele, Rashid Shaheed, I think those 5 players are a lock to make the roster. One more wide receiver. Maybe it's Ced Wilson. Maybe it's Dante Pettis. Maybe it's somebody else. But I think at the end of the day, Kevin Austin Jr. was a release that needed to happen. We're going to take a look at the running backs now because CEH, he is a player who they terminated his contract, so he won't actually have to touch waivers. He can sign with any team at any point. My personal opinion, don't have any reason to believe this, but my personal opinion is that the New Orleans Saints, maybe they have like a handshake agreement under the table, say, hey, we're just going to cut you, roster management type thing, and then we're going to bring you back on the practice squad, make you a standard elevation, make you a part of this team still. I just think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is an effective player, especially when he's blocking and for Tyler Shuck or Spencer Rattler. He was pretty good in that regard. And I think that he can offer something as a guy from LSU, as a guy who came to the New Orleans Saints last year. I think that he does have a role, a very minuscule role, but a role nonetheless, probably brought back on the practice squad if you ask me. Marcus Yarns, I think, also will be brought back. In 2024, he was pretty effective out in Delaware. He was an undrafted free agent brought in this offseason. I think the Saints could also look to bring him back on the practice squad because, as we know, Kendre Miller, he's a good football player when he's healthy, but health has been the big issue with him. So we'll have to see what happens. Devin Neal, Kendre Miller, Alvin Kamara, I think those are your top 3 running backs. Velus Jones Jr., I could see also making the roster, taking Dante Pettis' spot. I think that he is a good special teams threat as well. So when it comes to the running back room, this is how it's currently shaking out, and we'll keep you guys updated if there's any more moves. Trayton Welch was a little bit of a surprising release, in my opinion. I thought he was pretty effective in the preseason. 6 catches, 65 yards, over 10 yards per grab. And it was an interesting move, to say the least, because the tight end room in New Orleans is very, very beat up. Taysom Hill, Foster Moreau, they're not coming back anytime soon. I think both of those players will either end up on short-term IR or they'll end up on, well, actually, I can't do that because you already have 2 players. Maybe they go on the PUP list. Who knows what's going to happen with those 2 guys. But Maliki Mataval, Jack Stoll, and Juwan Johnson are your only 3 healthy tight ends. There have been a plethora of guys released today, so maybe the Saints look elsewhere on the waiver wire to bring in some depth at the tight end position because we know Kellen Moore loves utilizing that part of the offense. We're going to get to the defensive side of the football. We're going to talk Isaiah Foskey here in just a moment, but really quick, got to say thank you to today's presenting sponsor, and that is Chubby's Shorts, one of my favorite sponsors we have here at Saints Now by Chat Sports. Are you ready for some football? Week 1, it's around the corner, and I'll tell you what, if you're not ready, if you're not suited up, if you don't have the right gear, you got to check out Chubby Shorts, especially their NFL collection. Whether you're tailgating, grilling, or riding the highs and lows of the game from your couch, Chubby's has the officially licensed NFL gear to keep you looking like the ultimate fanatic. Fan is short for fanatic, so go show off how crazy of a fan you are by clicking the link in the comments and description of this video. For a limited time, you can use our exclusive code CHATSPORTS for $10 off at chubbyshorts.com/CHATSPORTS. Yes, that includes the NFL collection. Now, Chubby's is the ultimate football apparel brand, so much so they created their own fantasy football league. George Kittle, Ian Rappaport, and others have come together to assemble the Chubby's League on NFL Fantasy. Each week, the top 5 scorers will win a chance at Chubby's polos and shorts combos with their team's logo. The grand champion gets the chance at the ultimate fan experience. A 5-stadium NFL game tour with a +1. While the fantasy flop faces a hilarious and unforgettable punishment only Chubby's could pull off, head to chubbyshorts.com/thechubbiesleague to learn more and have some fun. Get ready for the most outrageous fantasy football season of your life. And would you look at that, folks, for a limited time, our friends at Chubby's are giving listeners of Saints Now by Chat Sports $10 off with our promo code CHATSPORTS at chubbyshorts.com/chatsports. That's $10 off with promo code CHATSPORTS, and that includes the NFL collection. Support our show and let them know we sent you. All that information is in the comments and description of this video. Shout out to Chubby Shorts. Skies out, thighs out, baby. All right, Isaiah Foskey, he obviously was a player that was released as well. He was the all-time sack leader for Notre Dame, 26.5 sacks for the Fighting Irish in college. Absolutely incredible. This guy had some really good tape at the Senior Bowl. When he was drafted, he was ecstatic to be a part of this defense and a part of this squad. 40th overall selection just a couple of years ago, that 2023 draft class. looks to be a bunch of duds, if you ask me. He just hasn't panned out in New Orleans. He has had virtually no production. Fadil Diggs almost has matched his production in just this preseason versus all of the reps we've seen from Isaiah Foskey. Hasn't panned out. The change of scheme, bringing in Brandon Staley to modernize this defensive line, make him a stand-up edge rusher, which is what he did for the Fighting Irish, and that's how he got 26.5 sacks. Just didn't work out. And I got to ask, where did things go wrong? Where in the hell did everything go south for this player? I mean, he was so productive in college. He was so good. I thought the Saints got an excellent pick with Isaiah Foskey just a few years ago. And I know you at home were feeling the same damn way. But here we are a couple years later. Now he's not even on the roster. Brandon Staley did say, talking to media, he was asked about why did Isaiah Foskey get cut? He said, quote, "That is a better question for Kellen Moore and Mickey Loomis. I think Isaiah did a really good job for us when he was here. Played really hard. There's a lot of football in front of him. Obviously, the franchise is not going to take an opportunity to slander this player. They're not going to try to degrade him by any means. So don't expect these coaches to be like, oh, yeah, it just was bad. That's why we didn't cut him, or that's why he's not on the roster. So just for what it's worth, you're not going to get black and white from the coaches. That's why you subscribe to Saints Now by Chat Sports. Isaiah Foskey could also be a player to potentially consider bringing back on the practice squad. I'm not sold on it. I don't think you prioritize bringing him back, but maybe. Injuries kind of happen. Might make sense. I can't decide what I would do, so I'm going to ask you. Type yes or no. Should Isaiah Foskey come back to the New Orleans Saints practice squad? Let's go to Rico Payton here. This one stinks. I was really high on Rico Payton. I've been high on him since he signed with the New Orleans Saints out of Pittsburgh State. He's been effective as a special teamer when he had his number called due to injuries last year. He stepped in and filled in very nicely. I thought he had a pretty impressive preseason, but he recently suffered an injury. Kellen Moore saying he'll keep him out for 2 to 3 weeks. So I think ultimately that means Rico Payton, I think ultimately that is why Rico Payton was released, but also Dallas Beenham was released as well as a 2025 undrafted free agent that was brought in from South Dakota State. The New Orleans was looking to add some depth to the cornerback position, but I think when you see these two players at the bottom end of the depth chart that have been cut, no disrespect to these guys, I think that there is good news for some of the other dudes in the room right now. Quincy Riley, he is a rookie out of Louisville. Really excited to see how he continues to develop. Jaden Price, Vanilla Ice is what I've been calling him, the Saints' white corner contributor in kick returns and punt returns as well. I think that's why ultimately he has not been released yet. Again, if things do happen, we will let you know. Rajon Wright, he is on there, Last Chance U legend, Alontae Taylor. The backup for him is Ugo Amadi. No changes there, in my opinion. I think that he should be on this roster, especially with Alontae Taylor nursing an injury to his groin right now. I'll tell you what, shout out to Last Chance U legend. I think Rajon Wright made the roster. We will know officially later today if he's a part of the 53-man roster. But I got to say, I think he did it, which is awesome. Shout out to him, man. It's really sick to see a guy who has a really interesting story, Last Chance U story, on and off practice squads, on and off different rosters, and now he's landed in New Orleans. He had a very impressive preseason, really impressive summer. Brandon Staley was very complimentary of him as well. And I do think that Rajon Wright could be a really nice player to have in on the rotation of the cornerbacks. Brandon Staley saying, quote, "He was contesting the entire way, and he's a guy that we felt like was an improving player." Rajon Wright, congratulations to you, my friend. I believe you made the roster, but it'll be made official later on today. Let's move to linebackers. DeMarco Jackson, he was a player that the New Orleans Saints drafted a few years ago. He was a core special teamer, and I don't think that he is a player that you've seen the last of in New Orleans. I could see him being brought back on the practice squad. The New Orleans Saints had to make some really tough decisions in the linebacker room. I mean, you got guys like Demario Davis, Pete Werner, not making any changes there. You drafted Danny Stutzman. Jalen Ford has come on in a big way. Isaiah Stallbert has been really impressive. The linebacker room in New Orleans is absolutely loaded. That might have been the toughest area to make some roster cuts because you have so much talent and so much young promise that has been developing in a really impressive way. So I think for DeMarco Jackson, he just was the lesser of all evils, if you will, and he just was not good enough to beat out Danny Stutzman, Jalen Ford, Isaiah Stallbird. No disrespect to him. I think that DeMarco Jackson could be brought back as a special teamer. He was really efficient in that role. And again, the linebacker room was absolutely stacked in New Orleans. So this was tough decisions to make for Brandon Staley, Kellen Moore, and Mickey Loomis. Now, we do have more cuts coming here later on throughout the day. I will encourage you to follow me on social media. I'm tracking all of the cuts that happen. The Saints, they got to get down to 53 players by 3 p.m. Central Time. So I will encourage you to subscribe to the channel. I will break down the 53-man roster once it is set. And as soon as the practice squad is filled out, we'll also provide a video around that. So be sure to subscribe, turn on those notifications. Who Dat Nation, y'all stay golden, and we'll see you next time.